started. Very excited to have you all here. My name is Amy Buchan Siegfried. I am the founder and CEO of Cultivate, a network of champions, where we're designed to help take the anxiety out of networking for you. It's no longer a four-letter word. Let me introduce you to probably one of the most interesting humans I know. I just love spending time with Rachel. And so let me give you a little bit of rundown of who Rachel is and what we're going to talk about today. So Rachel is the owner and CEO of Brain Code Centers, and her life was transformed by neurofeedback as a teenager when she was struggling with her mental health. After a pivotal experience, she dedicated her life to being a neurospecialist with a mission to educate and expand the field. She has grown her company from the ground up and now has multiple locations across the country, as well as a worldwide remote neurofeedback company that has served over 14,000 clients around the world, including myself. Rachel studied psychology at Baylor. She's received a master's in clinical mental health counseling. She's a licensed professional counselor and also board certified in neurofeedback. She's an avid golfer, mountain biker, skier, and loves to travel, but her passion is sharing about the power of creating a resilient brain. She's officially one of the most interesting people I know, and I'm really excited for her to join us today. She was the top of my list to have in here because like I said before, I learned so much from Rachel, and every time I leave chatting with her, I always come away with like an achievable, simple, but really mind blowing nugget of information, whatever that might be. So, Rachel, thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. I'm super excited, Amy, and you are also one of my favorite people to exist. So
Well, thank
happy
you.
to be here.
I appreciate that. That says a lot since I know who you hang out with. So I appreciate that. I guess let's start from the beginning. What experiences shaped who you are today?
Yes. Well, I think growing up is probably where we should start. And I was a very, very reckless and impulsive youngster, so much so that every single year it felt like my behavior got more and more out of control. So started off in middle school utilizing marijuana, started to hang out with not the best of crowds. That behavior got worse in high school, lots of drugs, lots of alcohol, a handful of arrests, unfortunately. And I'll never forget being in a jail cell and just praying to God, like, if you can just get me out of the situation, like, then I'll get my life together. And then I wouldn't get my life together. I'd make the same impulsive decisions and do the same reckless things and hang out with the same toxic people. And was just constantly struggling with my mental health. And I didn't want to feel reliant on medication for my whole life. And I had tried traditional talk therapy, just wasn't really progressing me the way that I needed. And so I'm so grateful that my parents ended up finding out about brain mapping and neurofeedback. And I was pretty resistant at first. I'm like, what is that woohoo therapy? Don't really want to do it, but I had nothing left to lose. So I went and tried it. And essentially the results of my brain map showed that I was going 150 miles an hour with no brakes, right? My frontal cortex was moving so quickly. And if you know anything about the brain, your frontal cortex is key for decision making. So good luck making good decisions when you're flying down the highway 150 miles an hour. The clinical pattern that exhibited itself was that of bipolar disorder, which, if you guys know anything about mental health, that's typically a life sentence of medication management. I am very grateful that that was not the end of my story. I ended up doing a whole series of neurofeedback brain training and completely rewired my brain. At the end of it, I did a second brain map and my new results showed not one pattern of clinical bipolar. And it was really that experience that led me to feeling this passion that I wanted other people to know that you can optimize your brain. You can get so clear on how your brain operates that you feel ultimately in control of it instead of it being in control of you. So that was probably my most pivotal experience, was obviously going through that. Owning a business comes with, I feel like, a daily learning experience, but I definitely think my biggest trajectory of change was going through that therapeutic moment as a teenager.
It's an incredible story, and I love that story because you've lived the product that you have, but also it's changed your life. And I know you change people's lives every single day at Brain Code Centers. You work with so many people. What are some of the common mental roadblocks that you see?
I think now more than ever, we live in just such a hijacked society when it comes to stress. Everybody's overstimulated. People can't sleep. We're feeling stuck. We're over medicated. And I think the biggest mental roadblock, if I could just summarize it, is feeling stuck and feeling powerless against being able to go to sleep, powerless against being able to shift out of anxiety. And that just ripple effects on everything, right? Because if you're not feeling If you're feeling anxious, then you're not feeling confident. If you're feeling not focused, then you're not feeling dialed in. And so everything that I think people are wanting on this call, right, is how do you network? How do you find confidence? How do you become your best self? But if you have these limiting factors pulling you against who you're trying to be, then that's going to be the biggest roadblock in the first place. So yeah, I would just say that overstimulated, overactive brain that just constantly pulls you away from your own goals.
Talk a little bit as we kind of weave this through. So I'll try to keep some of my questions that I have for you too as we kind of weave through this. But you're talking about, let's start really off small, right? We talked about how there's maybe one practice, one small thing we can do. Kind of start there. Do you have something that you like to do that is one practice that you do, maybe not recommend for others, but that you do that helps you overcome those roadblocks, those mental stimulations, those overwhelm?
So there is a Japanese scientist by the name of Dr. Masaru Emoto, and he wanted to put this theory of our words hold so much power to the test. So he ended up taking students in two sets of water bottles. In the first set of water bottles, he had them speak negative words like, I hate you, you can't do it, you're unworthy. And then in the second set of water bottles, he had them speak life-giving words like, you can do it, you are worthy, you are powerful. They then froze those water bottles and they viewed the images under a microscope. And honestly, it was extraordinary what their findings were. The patterns that had the negative words spoken to them were chaotic and unorganized and honestly ugly. But the positive ones were beautiful and formed these just harmonious crystals that could be viewed under the microscope. And so I tell you that story because ultimately, the words that you say and the words that you tell yourself carry so much more weight than honestly anybody I think really can see. And so one of the things that I do as a practice is I'm really, really careful about the words that I speak and the words that I tell myself. I've been trying even more intentionally lately to reframe things. Like if I say, oh gosh, I had a bad night of sleep last night, or gosh, can I sleep tonight? Yes, I can sleep tonight. I'm doing the things that I need to be able to sleep. And gosh, last night was a little bit rough, but we're going to get it dialed in. Anything that you're speaking holds weight. So you need to be very, very, very careful about the words that you choose because they carry impact not only on yourself, but on the environment around you.
So one thing I know personally, which I love that, and that's actually something I'm trying to do. Even in our household, we kind of say, instead of saying I can't, it's like I won't, because I can. I just don't want to right now, or whatever that might be. But talk to me about one of the things we talk about, obviously, self-worth. We always say there's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of things we all encounter, especially with social media and everything. How do you talk to yourself about you are worthy? How do you reframe it? I think reframing is a big thing that I'm always very curious about. How do you reframe some of those thoughts that come into your head?
Yes, I think there's probably two buckets, right? The people that do feel like a level of self-confidence, and then the people that maybe are struggling with self-confidence. So let's speak to both of those. I do feel like inherently I have developed self-confidence over the years, and I still struggle with, the enemy or negative thoughts or whatever you want to denote that as coming in and questioning your worth or questioning your ability or questioning if you're going to get through that. And sometimes the easiest way for me to remind myself of my worth is by looking back at my history of wins, right? If you look back and you actually start to account and look for the wins and look for the way that you overcome and look for the successes that you've realized, you're probably going to notice that there's a lot more than you are giving yourself credit for. And so I just remember that, hey, I have gotten through every single thing that I've been faced with in my life and come out that much more refined in the process. And so just reminding yourself of that, even just going back and maybe reflecting on those, like speaking those events to somebody that you trust or that you love, and talking about a win actually will help you step back into that place of a winning mindset. Let's talk about the other side of people, maybe people that are struggling with self confidence. This is going to be a harder exercise for you to do, right? Because you haven't even stepped into your own worth potentially in the first place. There's so many different elements to that, from a spiritual component to a therapy side of things, like where did you grow up? What was the foundation that you stepped into? I believe a lot of our self-worth comes from the environment that we were brought up in. And I always tell people you can't control the environment that you were brought up in, right? Generational trauma is a thing, but you do have the choice and the power to change the trajectory of your life and generations that are coming after you. And that is 100% up to the person. And so if you haven't done your own work, whether that's counseling or meditation or getting a guide and a coach to help you step through that, because finding your worth can be a really incredibly challenging journey to go through alone. Then you need to take those actionable steps to find your worth in the first place. So I think it looks different from person to person, but those would be the top two goals.
No, I think that's great. I think there's something to be said about taking that power back, right? When we all of a sudden are talking about letting all of the other things control us, we're not taking that power back to ourselves. And one of the things I like to do is I keep a win file. I do it. I have one in my email files. I also have a physical win file. When someone sends me a note, when someone says, "Hey, you really helped me with this," or "I really appreciate this," it doesn't have to be mind blowing, but when someone sends you something nice, put that in there because sometimes you need that pick me up. Sometimes you need that reminder of, hey, I am okay. I am awesome. I am nice. I'm kind. Whatever else you need that motivation to do, it's a huge opportunity to just, like you said, give yourself that pick you up and that boost of confidence because even the most confident people have moments where they're not confident.
100%.
So there's a question in the chat as well. And so this perfectly comes in. So talk to me about a practice you want for someone who wants to rewire their thinking or overcome a mental roadblock. So you talked a little bit about, taking that power back, but is there something that we can do to rewire? And maybe that is the same question, but if you have any other things, maybe let's go with that.
Yeah. So going on like the words that you speak are going to rewire your environment. So that's a huge one. A couple other tangibles that you can think about would be channeling the power of your breath. I believe that our lungs are some of the most underutilized superpowers that we have at our disposal. And if you have not mastered the art of breath work, then you're completely missing out on not only something free, but something so incredibly powerful that has the ability to change the way that your entire neurotransmitters fire. My favorite type of breath work is called box breathing. So if you haven't done box breathing before, it's basically where you inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and then hold for another 4. You do that exercise for 2 to 3 minutes, and you can literally disrupt the stress signals in your brain and move you down into a state of parasympathetic. And so if you're feeling stuck on something, you cannot be practicing breath work and stuck at the same time. And as you disrupt those stress signals, right, then all of a sudden you have a reset for yourself and you can try again. And I think that's what happens sometimes is we're not doing things to do a quick reset. We just sit there on the hamster wheel and we don't stop, right? I do this a lot. I have a keynote speech coming up in 2 days and I'm having to run through my speech a little bit. And there's a couple times that I just fumble over my words or say the wrong thing and I get frustrated, right? And if I let myself just keep fumbling, then my frustration increases. Well, guess what's happening to my brain? It's getting hijacked and my stress is going up. So I try to practice what I preach and say, oop, not going to do that. Going to do a couple rounds of box breathing. Guess what? When I do that, get it on the next take. And so you have to be practicing these little micro habits that in and of itself will create a habitry for you so that you're not getting in those patterns of being stuck in the first place.
And I think that's a great one. I think there's something to be said whenever you're even getting ready to walk into a stressful situation. May it be a test, may it be you're getting ready to walk on that stage, whatever that might look like. Doing a couple rounds of that box breathing, you can actually be walking down the hallway. No one knows, right? It doesn't have to be this dramatic thing. It can be this something simple that you do. And I've started doing that too, where for me, it's just a routine. So it's maybe, I think it's 4 seconds in, 7 seconds out that I can just do while I walk. You can figure it out while you talk to people and it feels good. And when I walk onto a stage personally, I do that just before I start because it calms it and it stops. And you're right. You can't count to 4 and then do your 4 for your box breathing if you're also spiraling somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's really great. Now mentioned micro habits. Talk to me about, as what I would consider a high achiever, highly functioning human. Talk to me about some of these micro habits maybe you have, but also you do a lot of work with a lot of really accomplished people. What do you see are successful micro habits people have that might be reasonable to implement?
So I believe we live in this society where work-life balance is the goal, right? Like if I can just get more work-life balance, then things will be great. Or maybe for some of you guys, like school life balance, whatever it is. And I think that people are asking themselves the wrong question. There's no such thing as work-life balance, right? You can't go to school and earn degrees and pay off those degrees with a career and then have time for your friends and have time for your exercise. Like there's no such thing as balance that you can find with that. So you're constantly going to come up short and constantly find failure. But what I do believe in is mental wellness integration. And the best people that are stepping into these 1% mindsets practice mental wellness integration. And that includes micro habits, right? Because then if you are incorporating micro habits and mental wellness on an hour by hour or day to day basis, you're never going to get out of harmony in the first place. And so, whatever it is, channeling your thoughts, doing different types of breath work on a regular basis, thought dumping. Thoughts literally untangle through the passing of a pen. And so I think we undervalue also the simplicity of something like journaling. I promise you, if you are having a hard day, or you can't make a decision and you go write it out for 10 minutes, you're not going to struggle with the same thing after you spend that 10 minutes writing it out. Your body will actually get rid of some of that stress just by letting it out from a penmanship standpoint. So I love that exercise as well. Bilateral stimulation tapping. Tapping is a form of connecting your right and your left hemisphere together so that they can start working as one. And they have higher levels of communication from a neurological network. So bilateral stimulation tapping super easy. You just take your fingers, tap your temples. You can do it on, if you don't want anybody to see you, you can't see my legs, but tap your legs or tap right here if you want to kind of watch your heart rate decrease. Bilateral stimulation tapping is a wonderful tool that has a direct link to the way your brain waves fire, and it can move you down from a state of stress. All you're doing, honestly, from a micro habit standpoint, is controlling your own thermostat, right? I think we're such a society where we're little thermometers. We react to everything around us. Like bad class, undermotivated, bad conversation with boyfriend, girlfriend, all of a sudden I'm hijacked. Horrible day at school, now I can't sleep. Like why can we not set the temperature and we not set the tone? But I'm telling you, you can if you take control of your own physiological states. And so those are a couple more of my favorite just micro habits that can really make sure that you stay in harmony in the first place.
That was really good. Actually, if you don't follow Rachel and or Brain Code on social, TikTok, Instagram, that was on there probably, I don't know, you guys talked about that probably a couple months ago. And I was in a situation where I was like purely having an anxiety attack. I was in a very small plane and it was not going well for me. And I thought, okay, what am I supposed to do? I've got my binaural beats in my ears. That's helping, but not enough. I need like all the things, control, alt, delete the situation. And I started doing that, the tapping. And I started doing it where I was like, okay, I'm just going to go down my body and just do something because it distracts and moves. But it helped me reset. And I'll be honest, it was something that was mind blowing to me because I never would have thought me just sitting here tapping would have done anything. And so it was one of those tips that you posted and, we all follow accounts that have different things. And I was like, oh my gosh, this thing just right now came to mind. And it was a savior because there was nowhere I could go in said small plane. So it was really helpful.
I love that. Was that when you went skydiving?
No, it was not when I went skydiving. That one, that came from cold plunging. That my mindset from, I know you're a big fan of cold plunging, but that same concept of you when you're cold plunging, you're cold. And all you can think about is how cold you are. So it's channeling your thoughts of like, it's where I do my mantras, right? Of I am enough. I have enough time in my day. I'm a good parent. I'm a good human. All those things. I'm not stressed. All those things I tell myself. And that's where I do those because that mindset, it's a practice and you get used to it. And now I wouldn't say I look forward to cold plunging. Let's not lie to ourselves. But at least it's a peaceful situation for me versus painful.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a thing, right? Talk to me a little bit. There was a question in the chat about overthinking. And I think you've probably given us a little bit with the box breathing, but when we get in that downward spiral, is there something you say to yourself, let's say, however it is, mine typically come in the middle of the night, as probably lots of people do. And maybe we don't come to mind with the tapping. We don't come to mind. We're not in the space to do the box breathing. Is there something else that you think when we're downward spiraling that we can get ourselves to stop?
I am not an by nature overthinker, but I know that like 80% of the population is. I actually struggle with the opposite. I underthink and just do it and I don't know, burn bridges in the meantime. That's kind of my impulsive nature. But I work with thousands of clients that overthinking is one of their number one goals, right? I look at it very brain based. To be honest, I sometimes believe we're talking about a lot of software tips like nutrition, exercise, box breathe, behavioral changes that you can do. there are times where you need to address the hardware. And if you haven't invested in something like neurofeedback or something like a root cause approach to mental health, you will ultimately feel very out of control and very powerless against maybe a very fast brain. And I'm seeing brain images while you're saying that. And so I don't want to undermine the fact that sometimes you can't out software a hardware issue, but some other practices that I love for overthinking are doing like a brain dump. So you can take an exercise. I like to do sticky notes, and you write down what you're worried about or what you're thinking about or catastrophizing about, and you put it on one side. But then you force yourself to write, well, what if something else happened, right? So I am so behind on this paper. It's due in a week. There's no way that I'm going to finish it in time. Okay. Put that over on that side and then write a line on your paper. And then you're going to write down, well, what's the best situation? Okay. I will finish it. I will get it done by Friday at noon. Put it over there. Well, I'm so busy this week. I have all these other commitments. I just won't be able to focus on my paper. Put it over there. I can cancel or reschedule one of my coffee meetings and spend an hour doing it here. And you just start sitting there negotiating with yourself, and you start to realize, like, all of a sudden this big giant in the room turned into a pretty easy thing that I can bite size my way through. But again, that practice not only helps you see it, but brings those stress levels down, and then your nervous system can be regulated. You're always going to be overthinking if your nervous system is not regulated. So you have to attack the nervous system as well. So that's another practical practice for the overthinking, overstimulated brain, is making yourself challenge the other side. So I like that one a lot
It's
too.
excellent. That's really, really excellent because I think you get that sometimes when you talk to someone else. Someone else might say to you, well, then just reschedule that coffee meeting, or you don't have to go to get your teeth cleaned this week. You could reschedule that too. So I think that that gives you an opportunity when maybe you don't have someone to soundboard with to really work through that. And it's a great practice. And it's kind of that same similar idea of let's not think about the worst thing that can happen. Let's think about the best thing can happen, right? It's like those mindsets of if I overthink if I don't know, we do this a lot at work, right? If we post this, what if it doesn't go well? What if this doesn't happen? And I joke, like, we're not making mac and cheese. We're not making Campbell's tomato soup where people are going to lose their minds if the recipe changes. It's okay. We can handle it. We can fix it. We can go with it. It's not the end of the world. Like the best thing, it goes great. The worst thing, we delete it. The worst thing, we end up on CNN and there's no such thing as bad PR. We go with it from that perspective.
And maybe you go there. Maybe you say, I'm not going to get it done. I'm going to fail the test. And then what happens? Then I'm going to fail the school year. I'm going to have to redo a school year. If you want to go there, right? Okay. So then over here, then I do a fifth semester. And you could sit there and go as deep and dark into your thinking as you want, but you have to be able to figure out, like, oh, okay, but still I'm going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's confidence in a nutshell, right? Knowing that if you screw up, you're still gonna be okay. If you fall down walking on the stage in your keynote, you're gonna stand up, you're gonna make a joke out about it. You know what? People are gonna remember that, and you're gonna be okay. And that's really what confidence is, knowing that you're gonna fail, but it's gonna be okay. Now, talk to me, we talk about a little bit about neurofeedback, and I just wanna give people an indication of like what it's part of what you do at Brain Code. But for those who are new to it, what does that do and how does that help people tap into their potential?
Neurofeedback is a specific therapy that targets brainwaves, because in my lens, when brainwaves are either too high or too low or not firing well, then that's going to be the byproduct of a mental health struggle. And so if we know that brainwaves are capable of changing, you have to give it a catalyst so that it learns how to change. And so we utilize neurofeedback, which is reward-based training. So you reward the brain over and over and over again for a desirable output of brainwave activity to teach it how to do that on its own. We use hardware. So our clients either have at-home headbands or they're coming to physical centers with electrodes on them. I'll actually just show you guys if you want, because I have it right in front of me. But here's our headbands that we use for at home. These little sensors set flush to the surface of your scalp. And then you download our Brain Code remote app, and that's how your brain gets rewarded. Think of your brain like having the controller to the app or the TV. The only way your video and sound plays on your app or on the TV is if your brain hits the target thresholds that we're asking it to. So your brain starts to learn that it has ultimate control over its activity if it can regulate its own wavelengths. Over the course of time, our clients get freed up from anxiety, depression, bipolar, overthinking, ADHD, you name it, because you're getting to the root of the instability in the first place. So that's like it in a really quick nutshell, but I absolutely love it. And then we do a brain map at the beginning so we can actually identify the areas of the brain that are creating the symptoms in the first place. And yeah, I mean, it's a really great tool when you feel like it's a hardware issue and you can't software yourself out of it.
Yeah, and what I think I really love, and I'm a product of neurofeedback, of brain code, and that's one of the reasons I asked Rachel to be here, because it's I love her as a human, but it was such a game changer for me. And what I love about it is that brain map tells you you're wired this way. You're not wrong because you overthink. You're not wrong because you catastrophize. You're not wrong because you're not overly motivated or you're artsy or whatever that's just how you were created. And so it's a really, to me, is a really cool thing to say, this is where I'd like to optimize. And that's how you do that. And so it's absolutely awesome and incredible. Now, I want to ask you, as we get ready to close up, I've dropped in the chat if anyone wants to put any more questions in. I've taken most people's questions and kind of put them into the stuff we've already talked about. But if you have any additional, let me know. But I want to know what's lighting you up right now, whether that's personally or professionally, and how are you leading into that energy?
I think, and I probably, this is on my top of my mind because we're going to give a speech on it, but one of the things that's been painful for me over the years is letting go of a bunch of old friendships that I've had. And I think I looked at that as a deficit for a while. Like, oh my gosh, I've lost friends, and whether that's by design or just kind of naturally happened, it still is a loss, which it's okay to kind of grieve that loss and stuff like that. But I've also realized that a lot of it has come down to just pure intentionality. And as you get more clear on your goals and more relentlessly dedicated to your path of success, you experience more solitude and you find yourself with a lot more of a select few. And I believe that you can take those select few and invest that much more of your intentional time with them. And if those people are on that same path of growth and right, they're seeking discomfort, like they're looking for it. Like, how can I go get uncomfortable so that I can increase my confidence? Those are the people that I want to hang with, anyways, right? You become like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. So, who the heck are those people for you, right? If those are the people that are partying and skipping school and they don't have drive or they're doing all sorts of things and that's what you want, then hang out with them. But if that's not the life that you envision for yourself, then I need to challenge you to like be okay with some solitude and find strength in that solitude. And then that right there is where you being a more successful, more driven, more all-encompassing worthy person that you're looking to be is going to stem from in the first place. So I guess that's what's lighting me up, is just like changing my mindset of a loss to actually so much gain in the face of solitude. And then excited for attracting more like-minded individuals into my own circle.
I think that's a really amazing point, and I think that's one thing that drew me to you initially when we became friends, was the discipline and some of the things that you do that I love and I execute on my end too. And I always like to go have fun. Like, discipline is, everything's relative, but it's a
And
key
then for
piece.
those that are listening, right, though, I will tell you guys a fun fact. Amy and I are always the ones that like Irish goodbye before everybody else, because we don't want to stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning drinking or partying. Like, we prioritize sleep because we know that one night that you stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning, it takes your body about 2 or 3 days to rebalance and kind of detoxify itself. So that's 3 days of loss then that we didn't have. So you and I still, yeah, we show up and we have fun, but we're kind of those outsiders in comparison to the masses, which I appreciate.
Yep. I could always know if it's like Rachel's, we can drive together because we'll leave at the same time. Okay. My last question for you, and I want you to finish this sentence. I feel most powerful when.
I feel most powerful when I get just amazing testimonies from clients, because it just means to me that I am in alignment with my purpose and the impact that I'm trying to make in the world. Now, that's a little bit more of a egotistical thing, right? I think like, oh my gosh, I got a positive testimony. It fills me up, not only because I know that they're winning, but it's like, that's right. Like, I'm doing what I was created to do. But I absolutely feel a level of joy and power and energy when I just get these gleaming testimonies from clients of life change.
And it's not selfish in a sense, right? You are giving them a quality of life that they didn't have before, right? And so from that perspective, yeah, it's filling your cup because you got this motivation of what you're doing, but you've given them the gift of whatever they were missing, or whatever they felt like they didn't have. So Thank you. That's what you're doing is incredible. Your mind is incredible. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. I'm going to encourage you all as we wrap up. If you would like to connect with Rachel, there's Instagram, TikTok on there as well. I will put this replay up on our YouTube channel, so we have that available for you at all times, and I'll also send out the recap as well. Rachel, I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us. It's been incredible, as always, to spend some time with you. So thank you for being here.
What a message for the world. And thank you guys all for listening.
Okay, follow Rachel at Brain Code Centers and braincodecenters